Now, let us see how a monopoly decides on how much to produce and what prices to charge. Before we do that, let us look at the marginal revenue curve for a monopolist. Now, as we know, the monopolist faces the whole demand curve, and this is given by the first two columns, which are this and this. So, which shows you the demand curve. When the price is 90, people wish to buy 10 units. When the price is 80, people wish to buy 20, and so on. So, this is your standard demand curve, which is a downward sloping demand curve. Price and quantity are inversely related, as you can see from these numbers. Now, what is marginal revenue? The marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. So, to calculate that, let us first calculate total revenue for this demand curve. The total revenue is given by price times quantity. So, for the first 10 units, the total revenue is 900. Then, if you are selling 20 units at a price of 80, the total revenue is 1600, and so on. So, what is the change in total revenue? Well, you go from 0 to 10. So, it is for the first 10 units is 900. When you go from 10 to 20, you can see it is 1600 minus 900. So, that will be 700, and so on. Marginal revenue will be the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. Since the change in total revenue is 900, the 900 has to be divided by 10 to give you 90. Similarly, the change in total revenue is given by 700, and 700 has to be divided by 10, which gives you 70, and so on. The interesting thing to notice is that except for at the very beginning, the price is always greater than the marginal revenue for monopolist. Why is the marginal revenue less than the price? That is certainly not the case for a perfectly competitive firm. Well, a perfectly competitive firm sells at a fixed price, right? It is a price taker. So, for perfect competition, marginal revenue is always equal to price. However, for a monopolist, the marginal revenue will always be less than the price. But why should it be so? The point is, since the monopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve, in order to be able to sell more, it has to reduce the price. So, for instance, if it goes from selling 20 units to 30 units, it has to reduce the price from 80 to 70. And it can't just sell the additional 10 units at 70, it's also got to sell the 20 units it was selling before at the lower price of 70. So, therefore, the marginal revenue will always be less than the price. So, now that we know all of this, how does a monopolist maximize profit? Let us suppose that the cost of producing per unit is given by 30. So, in which case the marginal cost is equal to average cost is equal to 30. So, this has been done merely to keep the calculation simple. You could always have an upward sloping marginal cost. So, in this case, the total cost is given by 30 into 10, 300, 30 into 20, 600, and so on. So, you get the total cost. So, profit as usual is total revenue minus total cost, and you get 900 minus 300, which is 600, then 1600 minus 600, which is 1000. So, thereby you can calculate the profits. So, what is the maximum profit? The maximum profit you can find is given by these numbers 1200, which occurs when you are producing either 30 or 40 units. That is one way of figuring out what is the profit maximizing level of output, and then you can also figure out the profit maximizing level of prices. The other way, of course, is to use the same calculation that we did earlier in terms of perfect competition, where we said a perfectly competitive firm should produce as long as the price is greater than the marginal cost and should stop when price is equal to marginal cost. So we can use the same logic, and instead of price, we can now say that the monopolist should continue producing as long as its marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. So let's look at the marginal revenue. Marginal revenue is given here, and the marginal cost is of course 30. So that means that you should not produce more than 40 units and the price should be 60. So we get the same result again. So a profit maximizing monopolist should set the marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, and the profit maximizing level of output in this case would be 40, and you can just use the demand curve to figure out that the profit maximizing price should be 60.